Hi students, I'm going to go through your latest CPT assignment. Let's go ahead and look here. We have case number 1. We have Lincoln Wilson. He was born with a bilateral hydrocele. He also has a hernia on both sides. Conditions become troublesome and they want to do correction on the 3-year-old. Same day surgery. So let's go ahead and start the process here. Pull up our encoder. Couple of different things to remember. Make sure you have male. Age 3, we have our same day surgery dates. We want to make sure that our product's APC finder. I'm going to hit continue. Hospital outpatient. And then we're going to start off with the primary diagnosis. One thing to remember when we are dealing with primary diagnosis, it's going to be outpatient, where principal diagnosis is going to be inpatient. And remember that. So we're going to put our PA3.5 in, congenital hydrocele. Okay, so with that, we also have our next diagnosis, which is going to be K40.20. Some of you had 2-1, and I'll explain that. And that one here is going to be for the bilateral hernia, not specified as recurrent. Some of you went ahead and put in recurrent, so keep that in mind. This hernia is with obstruction. That's why we went with K40.20. The wording for this for the obstruction is going to be troublesome. All right. So once we get our diagnosis in, the next thing is we want to add our surgical CPT procedure. And with that, that's going to be the 49500, our bilateral hernia repair, their hydrocelectomy. The code some had was only for the hydrocelectomy. Okay, the repair needed to be included. So that's why we need a 49500. The patient was under 5 years old. So some had 49520. We have to remember that we need the 49500. Couple of other things here. I talked about the primary diagnosis for this one, and make sure we know it's congenital. That's why we need the P code. All right, so let's go ahead and get those put into our system. All right, so I'm going to add procedure 49500. Right, as you see here, repair hernia, 6 to 5 years old. This patient was under. Okay, and what modifier? We're going to do 50. I'll show you how I'm going to add 50 to that modifier. So you go to the code itself. I'm going to double click it, and I am going to add modifier. So with this, I always tell students, check this out. So add, delete modifier. We're going to put 50 bilateral, and add, and then hit OK. So now our 50 is on there. Okay, let's scoot this over. Let's come on down. Per encoder, what is the APC for the CPT surgical code? We look here, we have 05341, right? That is our APC. With the amount, this is going to vary. You can see right up here, 3930 and 70 cents, so 3,930 and 70. If I had a different year put in, it's going to make a difference on the payment, so keep that in mind. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to patient number 2. Case number 2, we have Maya Washington, age 37. Better switch that to female. And we have 115 to 115, right? So everything matches up. APC finder, I'm going to hit continue. It's going to be our outpatient and our key code. So let's go ahead and look at this one. All right, so chief complaint, cardiac arrest, found on the floor by her husband. She was in full arrest and he did start CPR immediately. Could have been down as 20 minutes. EMTs took over at that time. So let's look upon here. The patient was unconscious, didn't have a pulse, purple, physician's emergency note, full arrest. They did an epi. And let's go down here. We have our blood gases. Patient arrived at 11:10. So what is our first diagnosis? So let's go ahead and look at this. I'll go through the cardiac arrest, but let's go ahead and get these in here. So we're going to put our primary diagnosis, I46.9. All right, so right here we have cardiac arrest, cause unspecified. We're going to add our procedures, and I'll talk about them after I add those in. We have 99291. All right, and with that, that's going to be critical care. All right, we're going to add our next one, 92950. All right, so we have our two procedures. We'll get into that. Let's pull this up. So with this, can we code cardiac arrest since we don't know why the patient passed away? What was the cause of the cardiac arrest? One thing to remember is critical care and CPR were given, so we don't code the ER visit. The patient passed away, so you're able to code the CPT along with the critical care code. And there is an APC for critical care and the CPR. So let's see where that takes us. So right here, we have the APC 05041. And then if we come down here for this APC, we have 05722. Remember, you can have more than one APC. It's different than MSDRG. MSDRGs you can only have one. For APCs, you can have more. Okay, so let's look at our total here is $1,162. Let's go ahead here at our next question. The estimated total reimbursement for this case is less than $500. That's false. As I just showed you, the total reimbursement, and it doesn't matter if it's going to be 2024, 22, it's still going to be false because it's way over 500. All right, let's go ahead to our next patient, Hector Robinson. And we have a 39-year-old male, and we have 130, 2023. Everything else stays the same. We're still outpatient. Okay. So I have everything for Hector. Hit continue. Hospital outpatient. What do we all have going on here? So with this, we have upper GI endoscopy, heartburn, no complications. They did an endoscope was passed. The biggest thing here is they did a upper GI endoscopy, which was accomplished without difficulty. They did do a biopsy of the mucosa of the cold forceps for histology. They did evaluate the microscopic esophagitis and evaluation to rule out Barrett's esophagus. So we have no bleeding, and biopsies were taken with cold forceps, so we got all that. So impression, we have a GERD. We have mild adrenal gastritis. So let's go ahead. So what are we going to code? We have two different codes here. Everyone did pretty good on this. Let's go ahead and get those logged in. Let me pull up my Word document here. With this, it should be K2 1.9 and K2 9.60. The second diagnosis, keep in mind, should be without bleeding. Okay, some did with the one with the bleeding, and I'll talk about the surgical procedure. So let's go ahead and primary diagnosis. We have K2 1.9. Okay. I'm going to add another diagnosis here. K29.60. All right, so here again, without bleeding, now we are going to add our procedure, and it's going to be 43239. All right, so we have our GED right up here, our EGD, biopsy, single, multiple. So let's go ahead and look at this. They did do a biopsy, so that's why we do need the 43239. If some students did have 43235, that does not include the biopsy. 43202 is just an EGD, okay? That would be, and then if they did a biopsy, so that's why we went with the 43239. So make sure you distinguish between those codes, and you can read this over and over again. All right, case number 3, the money and the APC. Pull that up quick. So here we have the APC 05301, and with that, the amount for 2023, once again, this amount could change if it's a different year, but we have $916.12. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and move to case number 4. We have Javon Blankstein, male, age 5, admission and discharge from the emergency department. And the biggest thing here, we are looking at what everything's going on, but we're also looking at medical decision making for our level. So what ICD-10 primary diagnosis? Hint for the all. All right. Okay. So with this, with case number 4, this one was pretty cut and dry. Let me get this pulled up. As you can see here, everything's switched. Male, age 5, of 119. Go ahead, a hospital outpatient. We're going to put in our primary diagnosis, which is C91.00. All right. With that, we have acute lymphoblastic leukemia, not achieved admission. And then we're going to have 2 right here. Okay. So let's go and add those in quick. And I'm going to explain about that code that some of you put down with the R code and why we shouldn't have that. All right, so we have that, which is going to be infection, inflammatory reaction due to the cardiovascular device. And then we're going to add one more here. We have the Y83.1. Okay, and that's going to be a surgical cause of abnormal reaction. Then I'm going to go ahead and put in my procedure, 99284. All right. So with that, again, you can add different things that it's telling you to, but it looks like we have everything coded out completely. Here is our total amount for this one. Our APC, as you can see, is 05024, level 4 type. Let me pull this up real quick. Medical decision, we have appropriate history and exam were completed. So we're just coding on medical decision making for this ER. And moderate is going to be a 99284. The fever is a symptom of the leukemia, therefore we do not code the fever. So that's why we shouldn't really be cautious when you see those R codes because they're symptom codes. Make sure they are not related to the main primary diagnosis. Okay, the very last one here, we have Lois Harris. And with this patient, let's talk about that. She isn't in respiratory failure. She has had chronic COPD, severe shortness of breath. The main symptoms of ARDS, which usually develop within a few hours to a few days after precipitating injury or infection. So many people who develop ARDS don't survive. The risk of death increases with age and severity of illness. So, of the people who do survive, some recover completely, while others experience lasting damage to the lungs. All right, so let's go ahead and just look at this. So, with this, we have our J44.1 and then we have our Z code. There really wasn't any issues. 99214, once again, if you look here, we have moderate level of complexity for the medical decision making. That's what we are going off of. All right, so we have our codes here, our J44.1 and Z99.81, and I did state there's no APC for this, dependent on oxygen, and you have that. All right, so that wraps up our CPT assignment. If anybody has questions, please reach out. And the last thing, if you send me an inbox or a note saying what you learned from this video, I will add a point to one of your assignments. So once again, you just have to reach out and let me know that you listened and what you learned from it. Thanks.